Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Khawaja Hammad Akbar, and you're watching Global Times Pakistan. We're here to discuss this news story that came from America in the early morning. Is the verdict of George Floyd murder case. Mr. Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer, who was found guilty of murdering George Floyd. So, to discuss that murder, that the justice delayed or justice delivered, we have with us Mr. Mark from United Kingdom. How are you, Mr. Mark?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, thank you for giving us your time. Just share what is your opinion? Justice delivered or justice denied?
A little bit of both. I was skeptical that justice was going to be delivered in this case. I am very, very happy that it was. He was convicted on all three charges: second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. But a lot of things had to be in place all at the same time for this verdict to have taken place. And one of the people that has to be given credit for this is a young lady named Darnella Frazier, who was the young lady who actually took the video of George Floyd's murder. Were it not for her, there's a very real possibility that Derek Chauvin might not have been convicted. So I think that's a very important point. Also, in the last 10, 15 minutes, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, has announced he's going to open an investigation into the policies and practices of the Minneapolis Police Department. What that means is we will likely have some form of consent decree that the Minneapolis police and city officials will sign to reform their practices. Now, that's great for Minneapolis, but it needs to happen in many other places besides Minneapolis. You have to understand that cities, the top 20 cities in America, the 20 largest cities and the 20 largest police departments in America paid out $2.2 billion in settlements regarding civil rights violations and police misconduct. That is a humongous amount of money that taxpayers footed the bill for. And that may be one of the reforms we need to see take place.
So, Mark, if I recall the thing that when George Floyd was murdered and American roads went crazy and the world witnessed a historic protest on roads since in decades in American history, civil rights protest, if I may say. So, what do you think? We will heard that the protests are going on in America. So, is there any chances that people will come in solidarity with George Floyd again?
See, this is the thing that made George Floyd different than any of the other police killings in America. And that was the worldwide response because people saw it. In fact, the prosecutor in his summation said to the jury, "Believe your eyes." And that was the important difference with George Floyd. And it spread all over the world. Where I'm living in Brighton, England, they had 3 different marches to demand justice in the killing of George Floyd. Now, we're 4,000 miles from Minneapolis, Minnesota, but there were these kinds of protests all over the United States and in fact, all over the world. That's what made George Floyd's situation so much different from other situations in the past.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for this. Now let's come to the point about the reforms in the police structure of United States, the states of United States. What do you think Joe Biden, who's considered a liberal leader, can bring any change in these kind of institutes?
Well, I mean, it's his attorney general, the attorney general that he chose, Merrick Garland, who, by the way, was up for a Supreme Court seat, but got stonewalled out of that. But that's another story. It was his choice for attorney general that said he's going to institute an investigation into the Minneapolis Police Department. So to that extent, Joe Biden's picks for key positions, and keep in mind, too, that the attorney general for the state of Minnesota, a guy named Keith Ellison, who used to be a congressman, he chose the prosecutor that really handled this case extremely well. So you have up and down the food chain people who were committed to seeing justice done. And that has not always happened, quite frankly, when black people, unarmed black people in particular, were killed by police. You look at Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. There were no convictions in that particular case. So you see that there are differences. And I mean, one of the strangest things that happened is that while the Derek Chauvin murder trial was going on in a city called Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, a young black man by the name of Dante Wright was shot and killed by police. And that started as a traffic stop over having an air freshener in his window. And not long after that, a white guy in Hutchinson, Minnesota, which is about an hour away, attacked a police officer with a hammer and dragged him down the street and put him in the hospital, but he was taken alive. So, you know, for black people, there are very, very clear contradictions in law enforcement, very, very clear changes that have to be made. And I have to tell you, one of the things I think would be a great idea is for the monies that are paid to individual citizens who've been brutalized by the police, don't have it come from the taxpayers, have it come from the police pension funds. Maybe then they'll wake up and understand it's going to cost them money as individuals.
Lastly, Mark, concluding, what would be your concluding remarks about if I say that discrimination that is in the American DNA? Do you see it going or not?
It's not going to go. Just one conviction of one police officer for one brutal act is not going to take the racism that is, I think, for me and for many other black people, part of America's DNA. It's not going to remove it. There's no way that's going to happen because a lot of the people who practice and promote systemic racism are not cops. In some cases, they're politicians who are looking for an advantage. And in some cases, just plain folks who are totally, totally ignorant of actual American history. That's what's going to start to change things when people start to realize what America was truly all about, as opposed to what they've been told and what they've read in their history books.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for sharing your sagacious thoughts and precious time with Global Times Pakistan. And it is always a pleasure to have you with us. And I thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you, audience. This is Fallout today. Keep watching Global Times Pakistan for more updates. Thank you.